Spin tales about the grand tapestry, an invisible weave holding our world together. They say the grand tapestry is torn by folk sorrows, and these damaged threads give rise to them evil spirits called haints. But every great while, a mighty storm rose, awakening a powerful force. A weaver, gifted with the power to reach into the past and mend folks' deep wounds.
South of Midnight is a game that I want to love more than I actually do. It is superbly written and performed with mood to spare, but it's not that much fun to play. The final result is just short enough that I didn't leave it unfinished, but I doubt I'll ever return to it the same way I would if it was a film.
The last weaver vanished long ago, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
South of Midnight is a fairy tale in the style of Alice in Wonderland and American Gods. It effortlessly balances between fantasy and Southern Gothic, tying together nursery rhymes, folk tales, and even the works of Flannery O'Connor. It begins, as most stories like it, on a dark and stormy night. A hurricane is coming, and Hazel and her mother, Lacey, are working hard to get out of its path. They argue, and Hazel goes out to check on their neighbors. As she does, a flash flood picks up the trailer, along with Lacey, and drags them down the river. As Hazel gives chase, she notices the world has turned askew. Great beings wander the wild, catfish jabber like there's no tomorrow, and every legend appears alive and well, only bound to the tragedy and heartbreak that give this fictional area of Louisiana its flavor. Right off the bat, you'll find that South of Midnight is dripping with mood and texture. This is a lovingly crafted game, one that feels true in spirit to the worlds it depicts. Sadly, you'll also notice how janky the platforming is and how unimaginative the level design reveals itself beneath the gorgeous art direction. Over the course of the next 10 to 12 hours, South of Midnight proves countless of times how it's a gorgeous game to look at and a disappointing one to play. More than once during my review period, I made a note of how the only thing keeping me going was the great writing and character work. If only this were a film directed by Laika Studios, the minds behind Coraline and Kubo and the Two Strings, it would be a much better experience. The gameplay loop is quickly established, and it barely changes throughout the game. Hazel travels through different areas of the bayou, where she encounters tragic fates morphed into monsters over the years. As a weaver, a magical entity capable of fixing past wounds, Hazel must use her powers to ease the pain of the world around her. In-game, that's done by punching things until they heal. So, Hazel travels around sublimely beautiful landscapes, moving from one confined ruckus to the next, until she's collected enough material to close out a stigma, a large wound, for good. And then it's off to a boss fight, and you rinse and repeat that for about 10 hours. The combat mechanics are a chore, and the boss fights are tedious, and there are only a few different attacks, the skill tree is withered to say the least, and the camera lock-on is unreliable. There are really great accessibility settings that do help, but much of the creature design is so difficult to read that it leads to encounters being so annoying where at least I couldn't figure out what was hitting me and from where. Even worse are the bosses, where the attacks are often so poorly signaled that the game has to throw up written prompts to explain what it wants you to do. The world is a linear series of tubes where Hazel can divert marginally from the path in an orderly fashion to pick up some upgrades. These come in the shape of floofs, which are effectively souls, only rebranded. Gather enough of those, and Hazel can power up her attacks, yada 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 yada. One area where South of Midnight does excel is accessibility. This is one of the best designed, thoughtful, and nuanced systems in memory. You can adjust everything from color profiles to written visual cues and menu narration at the drop of the hat. Audio adjustments help with positioning and directional cues. The HUD can be attuned to help out as much or as little as you want. Navigation assistant guides impaired gamers through more complex settings. Push tap toggles help with running, jumping, and gliding, you name it. Even difficulty levels, they range from story emphasizing to downright punishing. You can even create a custom difficulty based on your needs. Battles, including bosses, can be skipped entirely, and you can enjoy South of Midnight 100% on your own terms. Even if the game itself has issues, there's no question that South of Midnight is the gold standard when it comes to accessibility in gaming. This is a beautiful, supremely inclusive work that deserves every amount of celebration that it gets. South of Midnight intentionally cranks down the frames during cutscenes to imitate a stop-motion-like animation style. Think of something like Henry Selick in James and the Giant Peach. It doesn't quite work, and I found myself often more distracted than enamored by it, and it's not the real thing, and it's not fluid enough either, so it sits in a weird middle ground that can lead to eye strain and annoyance. Luckily, the setting can be turned off in the menu. Otherwise, South of Midnight is a gorgeous game that runs at a smooth 60 FPS on the Xbox Series X. As for audio, I'd be surprised if this wasn't a strong contender at the end of the year for best soundtrack and performances. Voice acting is fantastic with strong performances in every direction, but it's really the gorgeous soundtrack full of original songs and spellbinding cues that is the star of the show. The heady mix of jazz, folk music, swing, and ragtime gives South of Midnight an identity and style that few others, if any, can claim to have. It makes even the direst bits of gameplay worthwhile just to hear the amazing music. Now, fun is a subjective, complex subject. It'll never mean the same thing for everybody. So it's hard to write off South of Midnight entirely because I'm not certain I didn't have fun with it, even though I was ready to dismiss it outright about halfway through the game. And that's because I love its presentation. I love the characters, I adore the writing, which captures elements of whimsy, tragedy, murder ballads, folklore, and binds them together with the kind of grace you rarely see in games. It's just everything else doesn't work. Many will quite rightly give it a miss entirely, even if it does tickle the nostalgia receptors of those who grew up with American McGee's Alice and Beyond Good and Evil. South of Midnight is a fantastic emulation of those two games, but it's about 20 years too late. Back in the mid-2000s, it would have fit in perfectly. Now, it stands out for all the wrong reasons. South of Midnight is a throwback to a bygone era in terms of gameplay, and that's not always a good thing. Its mechanics are dated, the gameplay loop is stale, the platforming feels stiff, and so many others have come since the days when this type of adventure ruled the roost that I can't help but see every way that the genre has progressed. And yet, it's such a well-written and strongly defined adventure that a part of me wants to love and recommend it nonetheless. There's a genuinely heart-wrenching tale beneath the problematic mechanics, one that tackles generational trauma, societal ills, and the power of folk stories in a way that genuinely moves the art form forward. And that's a weird juxtaposition to have a progressive story against a regressive game, but that kind of contradiction feels almost perfect for South of Midnight. It is, after all, a game about how messy we are as a people, and how sometimes that messiness makes us so unique in the end.